Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel, Second Act Cat RN, and I am a 64-year-old registered nurse. I am also exploring what I want to do for my second act, for my next, career or my next chapter in my life. And one of the things I was thinking about recently is, first of all, what defines elderly? Elderly, according to some research I did, is defined as being 65 years old or older. So according to that, I'm not quite elderly because I'm 64, but I know there are a lot of you that are. And what I want to talk about today is with regard to older people, whether you're an older nurse or someone that's not in nursing or not in medical, but you're deciding to change careers or wondering what you should do, one of the things that I wanted to include in discussing things on my channel is talking about the elephant in the room for older folks. And a lot of you may not really know what that means, but to me, that means the things that older folks go through, even if they're working or not working. I think it's primarily true when they're not working because there's a lot of free time on our hands. And so our mind starts to go places. So there are several, in my opinion, elephants in the room for older folks. And one of those that I wanted to touch on today, and I plan on doing a series with each of those as the topic per video. So the one I wanted to touch on today is that older people, and I'm going to use my notes. I've got some little bullet points here. So older people face and even think about, I know I do, loneliness and isolation or social isolation. So there are many people that are older, and when you have a lot of time on your hands, you do tend to let your mind wander and go there. So one of the things about loneliness is when you feel like your job or your career is over or ending, and you're wondering what you're going to do in the next chapter, you start to experience loneliness and being isolated from your friends, from the public, from the workforce. You know, for me, losing my job at age 60, was a huge, blow to my self-worth. And I struggled, and I still do. That was 2022. And I still struggle to this day, 3.5 years later, or 3 years later, I guess. And it's been a real struggle. So because older folks will have a lot more time on their hands and start to feel lonely because you don't have things to fill your day, the loneliness, a lot of times we don't tell people about that. I haven't told anybody about it, but now everybody knows, everybody that will watch the videos of mine. That is one of the things that I think about. I'm not lonesome, but there are times when I'm lonely, even though I'm an introvert. There are times when I'm lonely and I do want some form of human connection or human interaction. You know, I've said before, I've got a dog and 2 cats, and that's wonderful. I can communicate with them in their way, but I don't have that social interaction. So I feel like, in my case anyway, but probably true for a lot of you, I feel like I lost my identity when I was fired from my nursing job. So my identity was tied up in nursing, helping people, just doing all the things that a nurse does on a daily basis at their job. That's kind of where my identity was. And that was suddenly just, the rug was pulled out from under me. And I feel like my identity is now, I'm just kind of floating around in space. What kind of identity do I have? You know, we feel like when we're changing careers or we're getting ready to retire, what a wonderful thing that is. Where we get to choose what we want to do, or we're going to retire and we've saved up. Well, not all of us have saved up. Not all of us had a long, rewarding, lengthy career where we have a good retirement plan. So I think that comes into play with regard to the loneliness and social isolation. In my mind, it does. So I'm going to look on my notes here. According to the National Institutes of Health, the risk factors for loneliness in older people one of those is living in a rural area. I'm in a semi-rural area. It's a small town. We're about at 45 minutes to an hour from the biggest city, Nashville. And so there aren't a lot of things to do in a rural area. There are some things out here that you can do, but for a lot of older people, you might have limitations to your driving or mobility, and you're not able to get out and go do these social functions to interact with your peers or with the community. So that's one of the risk factors, is when you're living in a more rural area. Another, which I just touched on, could be poor functional status. So if you are cognitively impaired, if you're physically impaired, a lot of times that will play with your mind and it makes you feel a little more lonely. I know for me, I was fired while on light duty, and I was on light duty from a backwards fall. So I sustained a brain injury, which has affected my vision. I also had some issues with my spine and my neck, and the way I hit has damaged my neck and my right ear. So I also have a lot of, I guess you could say, mental or neurological issues mentally, where I have a hard time multitasking. I lose my train of thought. If I don't have it written down, or if I don't act on something really quickly, I will lose my train of thought. So there are several issues that I have. They're not quite debilitating to where I feel like I have no future, but I think sometimes my mind will go there and it'll teeter on that thought. What will I do? How will I socialize with people if I have pain still, or limits? I'm limited on some of the mobility things that I can do, physical things that I can do. So to go hiking or to be involved in a group where maybe you're doing some sports or some activities, I'm very limited in what I can do. So in my mind, I'm thinking, who would want to hang out with me? Who would want to, what could I do if I met up with people or a group? A meetup group perhaps. There are limits that I have. So that's where my mind goes. And I know a lot of other people who have the same or similar kinds of, or more severe limitations. I know that's got to play on your mind quite a bit. So another risk factor is being a widow or a widower. So you find yourself, I have not been widowed, and you find yourself in a new life suddenly. You may have expected the death of your spouse. You may not have. It may have come on suddenly, unexpectedly. So being widowed, you tend to start to feel isolated because you were a couple and now you're a single. So just be aware of some of these risk factors that can lead up to loneliness as an older adult. So another risk factor, believe it or not, is being female. And that may be to increased expressiveness or value on friendships. A lot of men don't have real close bonded friendships. There are a lot that do, but there are a lot that don't. Women are more emotional, we're more talkative. And when that is taken away, or when you're a single woman and you don't have that close-knit group or those friends or family nearby, you can become lonely and it can affect you. I'll touch on what the effects of loneliness are after we get through what the risk factors are. So another, and this is really something that people don't talk about, but it does happen, And as a nurse and working with elderly people for years and years, I've seen that. I've seen this issue. And that is people that have urinary incontinence. So you may have a Foley catheter inserted that you have to live with. You may have to wear Depends. You may have leaks. You may have embarrassing things like that that you can't control. So therefore, you want to limit your time out. That's generally what people do. It's too much of a hassle to have to prepare for visits and time out and time together with friends, or outings, or grocery store trips, or lunch with your friends when you have incontinence of any kind. And a lot of people are very self-conscious about that. Sometimes you think there's the odor, there's the look that, oh, they can tell I'm wearing some Depends or pull-ups. And those things are really embarrassing and very personal for people. So that's another risk factor for loneliness with elderly or older folks. So another issue is when you have a lower income or a lower education level. A lot of times you think you're not worthy of being around friends, or a lot of times it causes depression. And so you feel like you don't have that desire to want to get out. You sit there in your loneliness and you wallow in it because that's what you know. It's almost like that's your comfort zone until you learn a different coping technique. So those are just some of the risk factors. And now I'm going to talk about the negative effects associated with loneliness. So quality of life, because you, as a person who's home, experience loneliness. If you're by yourself, even if you're married with a partner but you don't communicate, there is still that loneliness. But loneliness can lead to a decrease in quality of life because your social circle is small to non-existent. So your quality of life is such that you're a stay-at-home person. I'm an introvert. I prefer staying home, but I do have spurts of desire to be around people for just a very short amount of time. So I do want that socialization, but on my terms. I want to call it quits when I'm done, according to when I feel I'm done, and I want to go home. I don't want to be around people for a long time. But then I'll change and I'll get that burst of where I'm wanting to have some human interaction. So, and that's okay to do that. But when you have a lower quality of life or a lower education level, a lot of times you don't know what you don't know. You may feel like that's your existence. You have this quality of life that you're stuck at home. You may have physical issues, physical limitations. You don't know what to do about it. You may not have the finances to be able to do what you need to do to kind of improve upon your quality of life. So another effect is cognition. As we get older, there are a lot of people who start to experience memory loss, and maybe you're having the beginning of dementia or Alzheimer's or some memory issue, and your quality of life or your ability to get out and socialize is very limited. You may have a caregiver that is taking care of you 24/7, and you don't have the mentation to be able to interact with other people. So that's one of the issues. People with dementia can become lonely. They may not understand much, but I've known some that have had periods of loneliness, but they don't understand why. They're just not able to understand things in a normal way where you don't have the confusion surrounding it. Another effect of loneliness is a decreased quality of sleep. And a lot of times you're worrying. I know for me that does happen. I hate to say that, but I do worry when I'm trying to go to sleep or when I wake up in the middle of the night. So this morning, for example, I woke up and let my dog out, laid back down for about an hour. But as I was laying there, I was going over, my mind just decided to pull up all these these instances of fear and worry and personal issues that might keep me from getting a good night's sleep. So another issue on quality of sleep is that can lead to that is a lot of physical issues. So sometimes when people are in a lot of pain, or let's say they've had a surgery of some sort, maybe hip surgery, and they're limited on their mobility, they have a lot of pain still associated with that hip replacement, and they may not be able to get comfortable when they're sleeping, when they're resting. So that's another side effect of loneliness. Another one, they say that increased mortality is a side effect of loneliness. A lot of people, when you're lonely, you do a lot of worrying. Your body produces a lot of cortisol. Your heart, your body becomes stressed, and sometimes your heart may already have some issues, and that the increased mortality can be as a result of physical problems and the stress contributing to that, and just stacking up layer and layer and layer of stress to where you might have a heart attack, or there might be an instance where you have a stroke. So just being aware of the side effects of loneliness and what causes the loneliness can help us to find possibly help, maybe counseling, maybe a psychologist or someone that can help, maybe a social worker, where you can discuss these issues and try to implement a plan to help decrease that loneliness. So I do have more topics for my next videos that are related to things elephant-wise. The big elephant, the pink elephant, whatever color it is, it's right there in the room. And these things, these are secrets almost that older people keep from telling people about because it's embarrassing. So it's the big elephant in the room that you see, but everybody that is over it doesn't see that. So these are things that need to be dealt with and need to be talked about with some trusting person. So somebody that's qualified that can help guide you through these. So anyway, I'll have more topics on the next videos that I put out that are related to this. So if there's anything that you think of that might be contributing to your loneliness or side effects that you're going through, please list them below or drop a comment below to where we can maybe have an open discussion and learn from other people what helps. So until next time, have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon.